Hello, welcome back to the data channel and you are watching the data model masterclass series. And as part of this video, we will discuss, is data model still relevant? So this question you might have, I mean, like many people might have, and this is a very relevant question to ask today when we are discussing about the big data and the cloud technologies and like like lake house technologies and the data optimization and the data scalabilities nowadays is completely moved into cloud. So we really need to talk about all these like data models. Do we really need to worry about data model? So is a data model really have any relevance or any importance even today? So that's the whole question. And so this question might be coming up if you are into a project management, data engineering space, a database or like a database administrator or database management side, right? Or you might be like an end user who is investing in the IT, and you might really think this question, and it is still might be popping up why this is a data model is relevant. So because all systems are very robust nowadays and like they can scale up in no time. So what is the relevance of data model in still today's world, right? So that we will discuss in this video in detail with certain examples and so before proceeding, if you are new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. Yeah, so data model is still relevant. That's a question. And let's take a current scenario and we call it as a reflection of current scenario, right? So data modeling actually emerged in late 1960s. If you really want to go back in history and check, and in line with commercial use of database systems when started, right? And the basic concept as used in a practice have changed remarkably since then. So, however, we can see major changes in information technology and in the way that organizations use it, right? So, in the face of such changes, again the question is the data model still relevant? So whether as a result of asking this question or not, many organizations have reduced their commitment to data model. So most visibility through providing fewer jobs for professional data modelers, so etc. Right? And before proceeding, then we look at the challenges to relevant data model, and so few of the challenges might be like cost and benefit of a data model. So because if you're doing any investment, right? So most of the project leaders, from the leaders from the IT spaces and the managers, they will frequently ask what are the benefits of data model, right? And on the other side, like we can ask how much how much does data model is adding to the cost of the system, right? If you are planning for a project of $1 million, so how much percentage you need to invest in the data model and how much return you are getting? So that is what the project managers or the leaders are going to ask, because for them it's end of the day it's all business, right? The simple answer is that the data model is not an optional thing. So that just keep in mind, data model is not an optional thing. So database was never built without a model, right? So just like you, if you're building a house, if you're building a dam, if you're building any structure, so you need architecture. So if you don't have any architecture or a model or a plan on the page, so you cannot build that in a way that you wanted, right? You can still build a house, simple house, without a plan or something. But if you want to build as exactly how you want, so then there should be some visualization that you bring, so then only that visualization can be further converted into a actual reality, right? So in the same way, so data model is, if you want to build any system and the way how we want to bring it in reality, right? So then you need to have a data model. So there is no other option, it's not an optional thing. So and it is for the all the project leaders, IT leaders and managers, so who doesn't take it seriously. I mean, I'm not blaming them, but most of them take it lightly. But this is must, right? Data model is must, so no matter what. Okay. And the choice is not whether or not the data model to be used, but you need to ask whether to do it formally and whom to involve and how much effort to devote to producing a good design? So these are the questions you need to ask. The question should not be whether to use or not, right? And if these issues are not explicitly addressed, the decisions are likely to be respectively no, a database technician, or no, and not enough. So a formal data model phase, if you take in a project management cycle undertaken by a skilled data modelers and architects, should reduce the cost of the database development. So that is a um, whole intention. And So if you want to show the data modeling as a value generating or a business use cases or some kind of a saving, right? So then modeler should reduce the cost of the database development. So that is where you show some um, value to the project management, some visibility to the project management, and you can build the confidence from them. So unfortunately, the question about cost is sometimes prompted by past problems, right? And with the data modeling, in our experience, the two most common complaints are exercises, right? Unproductive time spent in data model, and clashes between data modelers and physical database designers. So there is the lack of familiarity with the data modeling principles and standard approaches to follow. So that is why it's always important to have a standard best practices which is at an organization level, because each data modeler can have its own. It's a data model is both an arts and science, right? But it should not be. It should give a liberty definitely, but it should not break the organization framework level. So if there is any organization is following some kind of a standards in data modeling, so they need to follow that. So that is where you start bringing the value, right? And other thing is SaaS and cloud vendors. So again, from this perspective, if you think, right, like so previous, if you talk about 30-40 years, so each organization used to build their own databases, own infrastructure, create a software, back end, front end, everything they used to do it. So in that time, okay, you might say, okay, there's a data model, there is a need for data model, right? But nowadays, if you take any organization, they think, okay, so I buy a SaaS product, I have a cloud vendor, so they do everything, right? So if I'm a product organization, and I might think that, okay, I give a money to a third party SaaS vendor or cloud vendor, I buy that particular product, and in that case, why I really need to worry about the data model? So that might be a relevant question, right? But that's always not true, because what happens is, so even though you have a SaaS vendor, so you might buy a ERP system, you might buy some particular like security tool, which you want to implement, you want to buy some project management tool, whatever it is, right? So but even though that is the case, you need to make sure that that particular software or that particular tool is relevant to your organization standards, and if is it scalable to your needs, and how well it integrates with your organization data, and organization's data, and how it is actually interacting with your organizational data. So that is where you need to be very careful about choosing a SaaS vendor also, so that data modeler or data architect, whoever is there, so that person need to take care of this, choosing a SaaS vendor which is relevant, and he need to assess that data model of that SaaS vendor, so that which is relevant to his particular organization, right? His or her particular organization. And so even the cloud vendors, so if you talk about you take Azure, AWS, Google, so they build their own system in their own standards. So if you're purchasing any product from them, so again you need to evaluate as a data modeler or the data architect whether it is suitable for you, right? And also you have a data integration. So it's very critical. Data integration is very key piece when you're talking about enterprises, right? So enterprise data management, and the poor data integration remains a major issue for all almost all the or most of the organization. The use of packages often create a problem, as different vendors organize and define the data in different ways. Even like take a, for example, a ERP product or a package which may be internally well organized or integrated will usually need to be shared data with or pass data to a other peripheral application. So uncontrolled data duplication will incur storage and update cost. So address these issues, the data model for each application may need to be maintained, and large scale enterprise data model may be developed to provide an overall picture or plan for the integration. So it needs to be said that despite many attempts, a few organizations have succeeded in using enterprise data model to achieve a goal level of data integration. And as a result, enterprise data model is not as widely as practiced as once was, right? But still, it is you need to take consider this data integration also into the picture. So with that, we will jump to a couple of we have considered few of the criterias or few of the important points that needs that is supporting the argument that data model is still relevant, right? So yeah, so these are the points that we have like compiled, and we are going to explain these points and how these makes data model still relevant, right? And data model is not going anywhere because of these points which supports it, right? And data model is kept relevant because of these certain points. And so if you think any other points, please you comes up in your mind apart from these points, please comment below. But we will go in this we have compiled these particular points and we will discuss one by one with certain examples, right? So data integration is again it's basically a um, it's basically a crucial for combining data from disparate sources. Like suppose if you are working in an enterprise organization, so you might have data spread across different systems. So if you are into a retail project, so retail project might have transaction data, it might have some master data in different source system, it might have like each customer data coming from different countries in from different databases, right? So that will be differently spread across, and you need to combine that, and logically you need to build a data model to integrate them, right? And understanding how the different systems and how the different data sets related to each other, and they establish and blend together and seamlessly integrate, right? And if you take an example for that matter, right, integrating a sales data from a CRM system, so customer relationship system, and finance data from ERP system, and then the social media data for comprehensive customer analytics. So what you do here is as a data modeler, so you need to take all the attributes, you need to understand the data which is coming from all the tables data, which table is relevant, which column is relevant, and which column in the CRM system is related to is actually having a relationship with the table in the finance database, and similarly how it is related, how you can correlate that data with the social media data that you have. So that is the importance of data modeler. So that is what the data modeler or the data architect does in case of during the data modeling phase. So next is the data warehousing, right? So data modeling is essentially for designing data warehouses, right? And which consolidate and organize data from various operational systems for analysis and reporting purpose. So data warehouse is, if you talk from any enterprise project level, data warehouse is at the end layer just before the reporting layer, because so data warehouse is meant for exposing the data for the reporting layer, right? Suppose if you are building a Power BI dashboard, you are building a some kind of visualization dashboard, so end of the day you will be connecting to the data warehouse because it's a OLAP analytical platform, right? And the proper data modeling ensures that the data warehouse schema is optimized for analytics and querying, because end of the day, so if you're building a dashboard and it takes 15-20 minutes to refresh a simple view, so then that's not a good data model, right? So your data model should make sure that whatever query you use on the data tables, it has to be optimized, the table should be normalized, denormalized, partitioned, so and spread across different like say systems as needed. So there are a lot of parameters to consider, we will not go in detail about that, but that is what the data model has to do when is considering the data warehousing. And example, designing a star schema for that matter, for a retail company, right, where the fact tables and the sales tables and the dimension tables for the product, customer, those will be there. So it's nothing but like a star schema, right? So you have a table here, right? So you have supporting tables here, right? So supporting tables might be usually like these are the fact tables, right? The transaction. So customer is performing some transaction. Customer is performing some. This is also some fact table. Customer is also performing some kind of like he's taking some credit, right? And so these are all fact tables, and there is some dimension tables where you kind of store uh, customer information like his age, date of birth, and bank account details or whatever, right? So you can consider this as a like a dimension and fact tables, and this is something like a star. We call it as a star model in data modeling. So this is how the data warehousing or reporting layer built, right? So this is one of the best example for that. And if you next consider the master data management, which is MDM, what we call, right? So master data management, its aim is to create a single and accurate view of the key business data, right, across an organization. So data modeling is an instrumental in defining master data entities, attributes, and relationships. So ensuring consistency and reliability across systems. Like so, we'll say example, right? Establishing a golden record for a customer information by consolidating and standardizing customer data for multiple systems. So what this particular example means here, right? So let's take an example. You have as an organization, like let's take Amazon as an example, right? So Amazon might have a couple of like applications. One is Amazon is having a shopping cart, right? And Amazon might have like a AWS cloud, right? So and Amazon might also have a like commercial application, which is a wholesale. This is a retail platform, and there might be a wholesale platform as well. And Amazon might also have, say, like some social media, for example. They might have some social media platforms for that matter, right? And a particular customer called C1, so he might be in all of the systems, right? He might be in all of the systems, or he might be only in one system, whatever it is, right? But end of the day, so if you want to build a relation, what he is doing in this system, what he is doing in this system, right? And if you want to build a relationship between the activity that he does in the retail platform and the activity he does in some other platform, so if you want to build the correlation, so definitely you need to identify that customer in a unique way. So how do you identify? So that is the beauty of master data management. So you need to identify him as a C1 in all of the systems. Here also C1, here also C1, and here also C1. So if you are able to identify him as a C1 in all of these systems, different systems in your organization, so then you can perform a correlation, and once you perform the correlation, there can be n number of possibilities for the data analytics or analysis, right? So that is what data modeling actually helps in creating a master data management MDM systems. And this is still relevant, and most of the organizations are like rigorously using this concept, and this is must have in most of the enterprise organizations, right? And next, quickly jump to the data migration and transformation. And this is again, you might have been working in, if you're working in the IT industry for a couple of years now, you might definitely worked in couple of migration projects. So migration is nothing but you take a data from X system, which is a legacy system, and you want to move to the Y system, which is most relevant or advanced systems because of some cost benefit, or you want to utilize the advanced features that is there in the Y system. So you want to come out of the X system, right? So that is where you migrate data from systems and or transforming data from one system to another system, right? So if you take again an example, mapping legacy system to mapping legacy system data fields, that means the data columns to corresponding fields in the new CRM system, right? What that means again, So suppose you have a legacy system, there is a SQL database, on-premise SQL database. So you want to move this entire ERP system, which is currently built on SQL database, to like take example of SAP as a ERP, right? So SAP will also have a say employee table similar to what you have here, and you need to map it column to column here. So the employee ID will be mapped, age will be mapped, date of birth will be mapped, whatever it is, right? So that mapping should happen. So who will do that? So that again data modeler has to do. That is again the importance of a data modeler, right? So this is where again data model comes into picture. So they are the person who are responsible to do that, and who actually need to do that. So now quickly move on to the business process optimization. So what that's optimization that data model can do here, right? Enables organization to map their business process to underlying data structures. So like data model enables this process, and by understanding how data flows through different process businesses, right? And this can identify bottlenecks, any streamline operations, and also improve the efficiency. So again, let's take an example for that so that we can better understand. So example is analyzing data flow diagrams to identify redundant steps and streamline that the order fulfillment process in a manufacturing company, right? So that's again the same thing, right? So you have a process of order management, like there is a step one, step two, step three, right? So after there is a order is placed, it has to the request has to go for the approval, and then it has to go for the logistic, whatever the process is, right? So if you identify all the business processes, and if you are able to map it, so suppose if this process is duplicated in another place, so this is a duplicate process, right? So this process can be removed from one of the process whatever you have, right? So to identify such kind of processes and duplicate processes, and it might lead to some inconsistencies, so those kind of things might be removed from it, yeah. And then comes the agile and DevOps practice, and this is a I think most of you have already heard about agile and DevOps, like which is a most buzzwords in the current IT industry. And in agile and DevOps environments, where rapid development, that's what we call agile, right? So rapid development, RAID, right? And frequent developments are common, and deployments are common. So data modeling helps maintain consistency and alignment between evolving business requirements and data structures, supporting continuous integration and delivery practices, right? Because see, end of the day, if you are having working in agile mode, so every week or every bi-weekly you have a sprint, you want to release a new feature, new model. So the data model should be flexible enough, and the data modeler should be able to like robustly help for the team to kind of integrate that requirements in the current model. So using a version control data model conjunction with continuous integration pipeline to iteratively develop and deploy the pipeline changes. So what this example means here, right? So suppose you have a code base. So you change the code in a test environment, right? And then you deploy the same code into UAT, user acceptance testing, and then you move that code to production environment. So this is the continuous integration, and you have a deployment cycle. You deploy the code in the current particular sprint, whatever you have. So this particular thing parallelly has to happen for the data model also. So data model also need to be version controlled. So this particular data model is which they are maintaining in test. So that has to be in line with the code in the test. So that's what has to be maintained. So data model also has to evolve over the time. It is not just about the code evolving over the time, and it has to be maintained, updated, and it is a uh, live document or live structure, the data model also, which in if you talk about the agile, right? And next is data quality management. So this is again, most of the organizations are facing these challenges because there's a lot of data today, right? And so if you have more data, and there is a possibility of getting error data, or the data which might not be used, or which is creating some inconsistencies, that is always be there. So data model is a foundation to data quality management efforts, you believe it or not. So if you have a very robust data model, it can prevent almost 70 to 80% of data quality issues. So I would not say 100%, but a good data model can prevent like around minimum 80%. I would say it can prevent data quality issues. And by defining data requirement, constraints, and validation rules, organizations can proactively address data quality issues and ensure that data is accurate, complete, and consistent. And example is implementing data validation rules to ensure that only properly formatted and accurate customer addresses are entered into the database. So this is simple, right? Suppose you want to, there's a user interface for a customer onboarding. If the new customer is on getting onboarded, so there is a user interface here, and customer enters address as say 123. 123 is not a valid address. So your data model should implement such a rules, right? That that has to stop this basically, right? Going into the database. And let's take an example of customer name, right? So user is like by like user will enter all these details, but the first name and last name he has left as a blank. So if he left first name and last name as blank, so this is a major data quality issue which shouldn't enter to the database because that is a key mandatory fields. So this is what your data model should be clearly defining, which cannot be null, which is a mandatory column, which is a primary key. So there can be certain set of rules which can prevent some all this kind of a data issues. So if the data issues are solved, I think that again brings the value to the business or any kind of a reporting that business uses. Next we have a data driven decision making, right? So here ultimately data model supports data driven decision making by providing a structured framework for organizations and analyzing data. So whether it is predicting customer behavior, optimizing some supply chain, or identifying market trends, well designed data models are essential for extracting meaningful insight from the data, right? And again, if you take an example here, let's take using a predictive analytics model to forecast a demand and optimize inventory levels for retail products based on the historical sales data. So here again, the data model is important, right? So otherwise, you cannot provide that kind of a structured data which analytics needs, right? And next is a facilitating communication. So facilitating communication is again uh, is important. Data model serves as a common language between business stakeholders, data analytics, and database developers, because each of them has a different mindset, different perspective, different level of understandings, right? Business stakeholders have think from the business perspective, data analyst and database developers might think in different perspective. So they don't have the common language if you don't have the data model. So that's why the data model is a key here, which can be presented to all of the stakeholders and bring the common understanding between them. So they provide a visual representation of data requirements and making it easier to communicate and align on the data needs of different stakeholders, right? So it's very like if a requirement is there and a particular user is there, which is the end user here, right? So this end user or the business user gives some requirement. I want certain screen and it has to go to this and it has to follow this certain process and then it has to come back to this report. So this is set of requirements that you might have. And as a developer or a data analyst, so you don't know how to implement this, right? And you might have certain question and you don't know how to ask that question. Suppose if you imagine you have a data model, right, which will drill down this requirement into some pictorial view. So there's an employee table, there is a process, it will go from here to here, here to here, and here to here, whatever it is, right? So then you can, this particular developer or data engineer or whoever is working on this requirement has that clarity, and if he has any questions he can go back to the end user and say, hey, I have a question in this particular area. So then business user can also understand this pictorial view, right, to kind of address his issues. And example is again presenting a complex requirement. As I said, there might be some complex example here which explained, right? So let's take this as a complex requirement and with lot of systems involved. So this is just an example, right? But the requirement might be 10-page requirement or 100-page requirement. So a 100-page requirement is given by business, and that has to be digested or that has to be converted to a data requirement. So that is what the data modeler does here. Otherwise, I mean, no one understands that, no one, there is no common terminologies, or there is no common language that each can talk, right? Involved, and form a conceptual model to different stakeholders to visualize this. So this will be our conceptual model, so that all the stakeholders can have a common language to discuss. And we have a scalability on performance. So you might think, okay, I have a cloud, I have a SaaS vendor, I have a XYZ third party application. I don't worry about scalability and performance, right? But no matter what, so end of the day, as an organization, you will be charged if you are using say for example, you are using a wrong data model you have decided to use, and because of that wrong data model, your processes are taking more time, and then your utilization is high. So end of the day, you are paying a lot of cost to the third party vendor, or you end up actually like spending more than what is really required, or sometimes it might be out of your project budget or whatever, right? So that's where the scalability performance is come into picture here. Effective data modeling supports scalability and performance optimization by designing efficient data structures and relationships. Organizations can ensure that their system can handle growing volume of data while maintaining acceptable performance level. Because if the performance level goes high, again, no matter what vendor or third party applications you are using, end of the day your performance is getting impacted, and your reports or end reports might be getting slow, or you might be getting charged more by the vendor. Example, understanding the user's geographical and then create a database and partitions appropriately. So that is a one of the key aspect the data modeler can do here, right? He can, like, he can decide to use, suppose there is a transaction table, so all the transaction tables from the across the globe is going into that table, and that table is a huge table, right? And it can produce 1 million records per day, or 10 million records per day, and the volume is continuously growing. And if you build a reporting on top of that table, so that would not be having good performance. So then you decide to have a partition. So you create a partition in that particular table based on the region, based on category of products, or based on country, right? So that whatever reports you are using, right, based on what you are using. So if you are using by region, maybe by country, by category, so based on that reporting requirement, you might create understand that requirement and create partitions accordingly. That will help us to the reporting layer. And supporting data governance and compliance, right? So data model plays a vital role again in data governance initiative by documenting data definitions, ownership, and data lineage. This particular document is crucial for regulatory compliance, risk management, and ensuring data security and privacy. So again, this is again one of the key point I want to highlight to any IT leaders, project managers thinking that, okay, data model is not relevant, right? So data model is whether your project needs it or not. So I'm again taking it as a bad example, but your project needs it. But if you think the project might not need, even in that case, it is needed by the compliance or regulatory authorities. So they will ask. So if you want to be compliant, if your organization need to make it risk free, and you need to have that risk management, compliance, and regulatory need to be met, so ensuring data security and privacy, so then you should document all the data models and keep it for any project. And that's an example of documenting data retention policies, how much you want to keep the data in a particular system, and how access control to comply with the regulatory system. What is your, like, how do you provide access to the user, how do you provide access to the different systems, that is access policies and requirements. There is requirements are GDPR requirements and HIPAA requirements based on the countries and based on the domains that you are working, like pharma, retail, whatever, etc., etc., right? So you need to follow their regulatory compliance stuff. And then we have adapting to technological advancement. So this is again, if you come at a current situation, right? So most of the organizations are advancing towards latest technologies like cloud and like data migrations to the recent cloud-based systems, etc. Right? So even in this case, data model practice may be helpful and will be helpful while the technology landscape continues to evolve with advancement of like big data, artificial intelligence, and IoT, machine learning. So the fundamental principle of data model remains relevant. So this is very important. Everyone need to understand, right? The fundamentals will not change. So this is data model is actually technology agnostic, right? Doesn't depend on any technology. So it's actually out of all these technologies. It is base of all these technologies, implementation, I would say, right? And data modeling practices may evolve to accommodate new technologies. Okay, so the practices might change, the principles will not change. Data model practices may change over the time as the new technology comes in, but the core concept of or the core principles of organizing and structuring data remains essential and remains almost same, right? And again, if you take example here, right? So incorporating a graph database model. So suppose you have a social media, you are building a social media platform like X, Facebook, whatever it is, right? So there you need to, if you are social media, if you're building a social media platform, so you have a person here and his friend request, he is friend with so many of users, right? And again, this particular user is its friend is connected with so many users, right? And this friend is connected with whatever it is. So this is a network. This is a model. So this model is called a graph database model. So if you are building a social media platform in the current scenario, so which is the most relevant platform or the applications, right? So in that case, you need to have a graph data model. So which again comes as part of the data modeling only. So graph data model is again might be a slightly a different deviated topic in data model, but it is still a part of a data model. So the core principle falls into data modeling only. So that's where we call it as a technology agnostic data modeling, and still it is relevant and it contributes to the implementations in the new technological space as well. And if you talk about a summary, right? So in summary, data modeling continues to be relevant because it provides a structured approach for any enterprises to kind of go and implement any solutions and leverage data assets effectively. So end of the day, data is an asset. So if you want to make maximum utilize of it, utilization of it, so you need to organize the data properly. So thereby supporting business objectives, including decision making and bringing operational efficiency. And suppose if you want to do any technological innovations advancement, so the data model also helps here. And the role of data modeler in many organizations might have changed, right? But as long as we need to deal with substantial volume of structured data, we need to know how to organize it and need to organize and understand the implications of the choice that we are making and making in doing so. That is essential what data modeling is all about, right? And hope this was useful in understanding the data modeling. And one of the one more video in this particular playlist. So we are bringing more videos in this playlist. So hope this is useful and thanks for watching.